Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. I guess you could call this the debate after the debate, since on Monday evening, for the first time ever, there was a five-way showdown between the leading contenders. There are 11 candidates in all for the first round of France's presidential election on April the 23rd. The five leading ones, well, they were squaring off. First time ever we've seen a candidates debate before the first round. With us to talk about it, Paris Area Regional Councillor Franck Marguin, who supports Conservative, François Fillon, Marine Le Pen supporter Émeric Merlot, who's a Loire Valley Regional Councillor, and for the National Front, Christophe Brunel, co-founder of Teachers with Macron, Boris Jamais-Fournier of the Socialist Party, backs Benoît Hamon, the Socialist Standard Bearer. And from Brussels, Sophie Rauser, Coordinator for European Affairs for the Mélenchon campaign. And speaking of Mélenchon, well, the award for Best One-Liner of the night definitely goes to the communist-backed candidate who plucked from obscurity a late 19th century expression to get the panel to stop beating around the bush when it comes to corruption.
This is amazing. You have the modesty of a gazelle when you claim that this campaign was sullied by certain candidates. Well, that doesn't include me. Sorry, but this needs to be said. This concerns only two people here, Mr. Fillon and Mrs. Le Pen. The others have nothing to do with this, so please don't lump us all together.
All right, both François Fillon and Marine Le Pen, who are facing corruption probes at this time. Sophie Rauser, your thoughts on whether or not, in the end of the day, voters will tar all politicians with the same brush, what with so many scandals in the home stretch of the campaign?
Yes, it's pretty clear that all these cases are fueling disgust and mistrust from to politicians from citizens, and this is fair. I think what we are seeing now is actually the end of the Fifth Republic. We are seeing its death. It is only fueling a still inefficient and corrupt system. So what we are calling for, and this was the intention of our march that we did Saturday just before that debate yesterday night, we gathered 130,000 people on Republic Square under the motto of calling for a Sixth Republic. Why is that so important to us? Because yes, we think we need to bring back citizens into politics and make politics for and by the people. This is why we call for new rules. We need more transparency, we need high ethics standards back into the game if we want people, and half of the French population is currently hesitating whether to vote or not and for whom to vote. We are very clean on this file, as Mélenchon said it earlier. One very simple rule could be, for example, we are claiming a petitionary right, the right to remove from office a member or a member of government.
Yeah, recall referendums is what you want.
That is declared. Yes, it is a different step procedure that exists in other countries around the world already, so that you can remove from office a politician that is not serving the interest of the nation or that has been charged with corruption.
Let me ask you, Boris Jamais-Fournier, this idea of recall referendums, will that solve the problem of what we're seeing right now?
It would be part of the solution. I feel like we are at the stage now where, as you said, the Fifth Republic is really not in a good shape, and we need to do whatever we can to clean up public life. That's exactly what
But do you need a new constitution for that?
It could be with a new constitution. It could be with also the proposition that Benoît Hamon is putting forward to have members of parliament publish their assets online, which would go in the right direction. I feel like, but just earlier when you were presenting the news and the news that the Minister for the Interior, Bruno Le Roux, just resigned because he's in the middle of some doubt about what he did when he hired his daughters when he was a member of parliament. My neighbor here was laughing it off, really showing the lack of respect that he has and his campaign has for justice and the most basic elements of justice, just like with Marine Le Pen and François Fillon, two candidates who are running for the highest office in the country and who are not presenting themselves in front of judges who are under indictments and just do not care about it. This is shocking to me as a French citizen.
All right. François Fillon did go before the judge. He read a statement before the magistrates, and then he read a statement and said he wouldn't answer any further questions. We did have the resignation this Tuesday of the Interior Minister, saying he wants to clear his name. Seems like he too has a parliamentary payroll affair. Is this going to tar everyone with the same paintbrush?
To be honest, I'm always amazed to receive some lesson of transparency from an old communist party. So we have to be very clear on that. So please be very careful about the fact that you are giving more lesson.
Let me be clear on one point. Sorry.
To everyone. That's my first statement. My second statement is that Mr. Fillon has been very clear on the fact that he made mistakes.
That is backed by a couple of political parties.
Some mistakes he has asked forgiveness, and I think forgiveness is part of our culture.
Hang on a sec. On that point, let's listen to what François Fillon had to say. Let's listen to François Fillon. On
Hang
that score,
I would like to react on this.
Fillon,
Sorry.
Just a minute, Sophie. François Fillon seemed to echo embattled former FIFA boss Sepp Blatter's "I'm not perfect, nobody's perfect" when he gave his closing statement.
I've made some mistakes, I have a few flaws, but who doesn't? Yet, I have experience.
I've made some mistakes. Is he downplaying what he's accused of?
No, he's not downplaying. He's asked for what I call forgiveness. And I think, part of the culture in France is about forgiveness. So who has never done any mistake? Throw the first stone. Do you know that? So I'm very, very clear on that. Yeah, he has made some mistake. He has asked for forgiveness. He's a very, very highly experienced guy, and I think the justice has done his job well, but the problem that he has done the job when the campaign has already started, so he had no choice to carry on. So if he's not elected, the justice will be carried on. If he's elected, the justice will be closed for 5 years and will carry on later. But we should understand that the Fifth Republic, and I'm not against my colleague as such, but the Fifth Republic has some pillars, and these pillars have worked quite well for the last 50 years. So don't throw everything away when suddenly there is an issue, and I think it's an issue, but it's not the end of the world.
Let me just say one thing. He did have a choice, because at the beginning of the campaign, he said, if I end up being indicted, I will withdraw from the race, which he didn't do when he was indicted. So really, he did have a choice. He just chose to ignore justice, which is awful and despicable.
Sophie Rouser.
Yes, thank you. This is not a question of forgiveness. I will go beyond that. I would even say that there's a right in this country that is called présomption d'innocence.
Presumption of innocence.
And on the Penelope Gate affair, this is very important for sure. And the justice will follow its due course, and we will see in due time. That's one point. The other question here in that case is the conflict of interest. Mr. Fillon has launched a cabinet de conseil, has been advising some multinationals, and has been caught in clear conflict of interest. And on these questions, yes, there is a need for new rules, because the current one and the current constitution does not match anymore the issue of the 21st century.
You don't need to change the constitution to clear that kind of issue.
You need to pass new laws, which the right did not vote for. Twice during this quinquennat, the left proposed new transparency laws in 2013 and in 2016, and twice the right didn't vote for these laws.
Christophe Brunel, how do you clean up French public life, which right now, again, ethics has dominated the campaign?
May I say two things before answering your question? We are 30 days away from the election, and what are the topics of these elections? Education, education, employment, unemployment. It's always the same thing. Ethics, problems with children. Come on, let's be honest. This election is something serious, and we have to be focused on real matters that French people really care about, and we are very.
You're saying that the French don't care about these conflict of interest issues?
No, but of course it's important, and we will.
Because Emmanuel Macron is a lobby candidate, maybe, that you're saying that. But I think, yeah, conflict of interest are important in this campaign. But, I mean, yesterday I think we had, for the first time, a real debate, especially because all these justice problems weren't that much talking about, we didn't talk about.
Well, François Fillon appeared before the magistrates. Marine Le Pen refuses to do so.
Yeah, she's in her right, and she said that she will go after the election, so that's nothing. I think
after the election, yes.
Obviously, because it should have been done way before that she would have been interviewed. But the problem between the French and the politicians is not a question of morality, it's more a question of lack of results. Because since during this debate, Marine Le Pen was the only one out of 5 candidates who never had been a ministry in any government, and so she's offering another path for French citizens, and I think it's what they are needing, and also what they want to talk about. It's about real issues such as immigration, as we talked about, our European Union, or our currency, our economic model that should be changed.
But surely voters are interested in influence. They're interested in who your friends are. The fact that Marine Le Pen, for instance, goes to Moscow to borrow money.
They know that Marine Le Pen is not a lobby candidate. Those candidates are Macron with Servier, with other big firms, or François Fillon as well, with AXA, for instance, which is a big insurance company. But we don't have. I'm sorry, with our relationship with the economic middle and economic affairs are not that well.
Are you saying that because Marine Le Pen has never been a minister, so she's perfectly clean?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that she is offering another path for France to leave the European Union, to have another economic system.
Have you opened the newspapers, and can you tell me about the European members of parliament assistants?
The fact that she hired her own personal bodyguard and pretended that he was
the guy wasn't even
a parliamentary assistant.
He was heard by French justice and was released. And it was so there is no problem with the bodyguard, right?
But I just want to also, open the debate for all these millions of foreigners who are watching us. I mean, we all talk about, conflict of interest, but what does that mean really? Because you are talking to someone who has some responsibilities in a, not public life, so in a private life, that means you have a conflict of interest. You talk about AXA because Mr. De Castro is advising Mr. Fillon. It's a conflict of interest.
No, I don't think so. Was based on this relationship.
Getting skills, and these skills trying to get them to help you to modernize your country. And I'm absolutely fed up, really fed up about all these people who pretend that, all the private people from the private life
but
have
French
no
people
interest.
are really fed up also with this kind of disgusting policy.
Please, you let me talk. That's typically communist area. So I really think that we have to open the cliché. Please. We have to open all these clichés about, are we talking to the private life, meaning we have conflict of interest.
But when you do politics, you don't have private interest. You have only public. When you were a former prime minister, you can't have those relationships and selling your advice by a consulting firm. It's not fair. It's not moral. And you know that. And you know that he just created this firm during the 2 weeks he could.
He was not prime minister. Sophie Rauser. He was not prime minister. He was out of the government.
11 days before. 11 days.
11 days before he was elected. And by the way, if you want to talk about his public record, when he was prime minister, the public deficit jumped by over 600 billion euros when he was prime minister. So talk about results.
Talk about the result of Mr. Hollande.
I'm talking about your candidate right now.
We have a lot to do about a lot to say about the poor result of Mr. Hollande. So please,
right now. Anyway, we will implement some rules about ethics.
Do you really think when we offer you an outfit that cost 15,000 euros, that this is just a gift? Nobody can really believe this. I mean, I really would like to have the same friends of Mr. Fillon. And let me be clear also on one point that you are always saying since the beginning. I am not a member of the Communist Party. Just ask the communists to reply for themselves. I'm a member of a political movement okay, from a political movement that is
directly originated
backed
from
by
the
a couple
communists.
of different political parties.
All right, so we've seen there's
Sorry?
two different views on the mores of French politics, two different views on globalization, and we saw during the debate as well there were differing views on the role of the French state. And there, Emmanuel Macron, when he was the economy minister, went in for a lot of heat for a bill that introduced more flexibility in the labor market. There were big demonstrations against it. What is the role of the state right now?
I think that the state can't control everything, but in some sectors, it has to give some more flexibilities. And I think about education. I'm not saying that Emmanuel Macron will give the power to headmasters to select their teachers, as we can see on Twitter, but on an agreement between the teacher and in some situations, the head teacher will have the right to do this. And
do you not think this will favor inequalities between?
How?
Well, if headmasters have a right to, be more flexible with
not
what
not all headmasters.
What do you mean?
I mean that we will select the headmaster will select in some situations when he thinks that the project of the school is clear and published everywhere. The teacher will know it and will agree on this project. That's only what
growing
we call
inequality
provide.
is of course at the heart of the problem for all countries, and France in particular. We've seen it over the last 5 years. How do you stop growing inequality in schools? What do you do to do that?
Well, it's not. I think inequalities to me are not only linked to school. It's more like a dynamic or a growth dynamic, which is put in place by the globalization, and so that some territories are gathering all the wealth, whereas others are lost. And I'm talking about. Yes, the suburbs, but also lots of countryside places that are completely forgotten. And this is the reason why they will vote massively for Marine Le Pen during the next elections, because they understand that we are the only one who actually offer them a solution in the future.
So what will be your solutions for education and for education for everybody then?
As you said, we want
there was no need for education, by the way.
Sorry?
Earlier, you said there was no need for education. You and your friend here.
I said the French people are already educated and that they don't need your speech to be educated. Yeah, exactly.
That's definitely not what he said. I said there's a need for education, and that's the reason why
we have one of the most educated population in the world. Come on, I don't know in what France are you living. We have one of the most educated people in the world. Population.
In terms of
it's very educated.
The latest PISA surveys from the OECD show that levels in reading and math are not terrible, but they're going down. Actually,
for a rich country, they are. Yeah. They are terrible.
Yeah, and who's the cause of that?
So we need to do better.
Yeah, but I think it was the Ministry of Education, your candidate, right?
Exactly.
So what did he do?
So exactly.
Well, nothing.
After 10 years of conservative power, after 10 years of conservative power, of people of conservatives killing public jobs, killing, by the way, 15,000 police jobs when we are
nothing to do with education anyway.
Nothing to do with education, but like public jobs. So I'm talking about public jobs in the police department. I'm also talking about public jobs
everything.
Did you not cut teachers' jobs? Did you not cut?
We talk about the role of the state here.
Did you cut?
How many teachers has to be reinvented?
Did the conservatives cut teachers' jobs or not?
Yes.
But how can you assume it?
Because we don't need more teachers. We need them to work differently, and we need to have the school system organized differently. Well, you pretend that having a best system is having more teachers. We pretend that the system would be better if it's well managed. That's the difference between you and I. Between our two candidates.
Exactly, but just
that's a policy. How can you teach in front of 38, 39 pupils.
Yes,
How is
that's
it
exactly
possible?
what I'm telling you.
Do you want to follow me every day?
We need to have more teachers in a school, but there is so many teachers who are just doing administrative things and who are not teaching. That's exactly the project of Mr. Fillon. He thinks that all the teachers, the pool of teachers we have, they have to teach and not work.
It's what we are doing.
But the problem
Unfortunately, not enough.
The school is,
come on.
it's not the school which is the problem. It's once again, it's depending on where the school is, the results are different. If you live in a big city, in the center of a city, you go to school in the center of a city, then you have good results, and you could go into the best universities of France. If you come from a small village, I don't know, in Auvergne or in anywhere else in France, you have less chances to go to one of the most prestigious schools. So I think it's more a question of needs that should be put in some region and others.
Sophie Rauser, on this point, the issue of reducing inequalities at a young age for France, where that divide is growing right now, what's your solution?
Yes, we think we need to employ more teachers. That's the base. But as in general, we need more state. And this is something that has been even said by Alain Juppé against François Fillon. And he was talking about the brutality of the social model of François Fillon. So even to apply some of the measures of the right wing, you need more security, you need more police forces. So how can you do that if you cut 500,000 employees, public employees? And just to come back also on one point you said earlier, the labor reform was not made by Macron, it was made by Myriam El Khomri, a member of the Parti Socialiste. It's an important point. On this, we call, for example, for the total cancellation of that Loi El Khomri, that labor reform. We think that a worker, the freedom of a worker to negotiate in front of his employer is just it's foolish. It's just a dream. It doesn't work like
You're
this.
for collective
you need
bargaining
state
agreements
and laws
instead.
to guarantee.
We have much more to talk
Yes.
about in the next 4.5 weeks before the first round of that presidential election. Sophie Rauser, I want to thank you for joining us from Brussels. I want to thank Franck Marguin, also Boris Jamet-Fournier, Émeric Merlot, and as well Christophe Brunel. Stay with us because Media Watch is next. And we say hello to James Creedon.
Hi, François.
It did look like the set of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, didn't it?
Right, and it could have been double the numbers as well. So it was already complicated, I think, with 5. Just a quick look at some of the headlines today in the aftermath. 5 voices, which led to a confrontation without any debate. That's one headline in Le Monde today. In other words, there was so many issues on the menu, if you like, and so many
Too many
candidates.
issues?
Perhaps too many issues, and also with 5 candidates, it's difficult to really get any sort of debate going at this stage. Another opinion piece here saying the menu was too copious, too many items on the menu, and the responses too short. Yet, one of the big criticisms of this debate organised by the private network TF1 was that 6 of the candidates weren't there. And in fact, there will be 2 further debates ahead of the first round of voting when there will be 11 candidates. TF1 was entitled to invite whoever they wanted, but a lot of the candidates at the beginning of the debate did criticise the fact that 6 others weren't.
Yeah, 'cause I did see reactions from foreign journalists. They said they would have liked to have seen fewer topics,
Right.
but with more follow-up questions, more fact-checking.
That's right. So the format did get some criticism. Interesting that one of the people who wasn't there caused a big stir this weekend by walking out of a TV interview with TF1, the network that was organising it, and he got 12 million views on YouTube for just walking out. So it seems by not being present, maybe you can get more attention than by being present.
All right, one way.
Right. Le Figaro here noting that Mélenchon was the most used word during the debate. That's because he is, notoriously a showman, if you like. He's very charismatic, and he comes out with these unexpected respected phrases and catchphrases, so people were punching that into Twitter. Another person saying here that it's a nice surprise that Mélenchon, who is often seen as somewhat cantankerous, is being clear, direct, interesting on all social issues, and no excesses of aggression, which he is noted for on occasion. It's impossible to go through all of the buzz around all of the candidates, so this is a bit willy-nilly, but there was another moment that got a lot of attention when Emmanuel Macron nailed Marine Le Pen on the question of the burkini. He accused her of acting like a ventriloquist, in other words, speaking for him, and that became one of the key kind of clashes that was I suppose, caught and went up on social media. A lot of eyes on Macron, I suppose, as the novice in some respects, the new candidate, and
if the polls are correct, the front runner.
That's right. But some of those analysing his performance in the debate, such as the Financial Times, feel that he missed his moment somewhat. He was also criticised quite a lot in the morning talk shows, as Le Monde says here. But in fact, he is the candidate to criticise, seeing as he's the front runner. So that's perhaps not a surprise. He was also criticised on social media for appearing too consensual, agreeing with the left and agreeing with the right, which is part of his strategy as somebody who's
the French aren't
bridged that gap. They're not. And so here you have a journalist here saying, "Hello, Mr. Macron," and Macron replying, "I'm absolutely in agreement with that. Please vote for me." So he did get teased a little bit on social media. Anyway, lots more buzz online, but unfortunately we're out of time.
All right, many thanks for that, James Creedon. I want to thank our panel once again. Thank you for joining us here. Much more on that debate and on the French elections in general on our website, France24.com.